SUV. He's brought the entire fleet. We assume that many members of his family are going to be here. I'm going to come out. I'm blocked a little bit. I'm watching the monitors that I can, but we'll see which members of his famous family arrive. Again, there are only 6 seats allocated. Oh, there's the umbrella. The umbrella is up. Michael Jackson is out of the 2nd Suburban. These are Cadillac Escalades. They're all matching. They have come and gone from Neverland. Anytime they move, everyone tries to pay attention. The crowd is beginning to chant, innocent, innocent, innocent. And again, the numbers continue to grow outside here. Michael Jackson starting to walk up. Well, you're seeing it unfold right there. I'm sort of watching it from the back view. Let's see if we can point out his family members. I see Jermaine. I believe that is Janet. Sort of hard to tell from the back side. There's Joe.
Wendy, we can see it from a different angle right now. Michael Jackson has gotten out. He has the umbrella over him. He is surrounded by family and bodyguards as they are entering in the courthouse right now. Thomas Mesereau is with them.
David, do you see Catherine?
Excuse me?
David, do you see Catherine? Do you see Catherine? Do you see Mom? Have we seen Mom walk in?
Yes.
And Mom is very important. Catherine has been such a staunch supporter of her son. You see him going through the metal detector right now. Catherine was really here more court days than any other of the family members. Now, the family has been staying at Neverland Ranch, and it's really unprecedented for this family, for them to spend so much time in these later years together. Even Rebe, Jackson's eldest sister, was up at the ranch. I don't know if we see Rebe coming in right now. I was mentioning before, as they're walking through this metal detection, which is going to take some time, that there are 6 seats that the Jackson family members can take. There's obviously more members of his family and more members of his close sort of entourage there than that. They will not be allowed in the courtroom. The court made no special accommodations. We had heard that the Jackson family had actually asked for additional seats so the entire family could be present. What will happen is that members of Michael Jackson's family will go upstairs where they will hear the verdict. So we're assuming that if it's anything like we've seen in the past, I would put money on the fact that Mom and Dad will be in there, both Joe and Catherine. I also believe Randy will be there. Randy is one of Michael's staunchest supporters. He actually runs MJJ Productions. He's really, of all the brothers, perhaps been one of the closest. And, you know, Janet, anytime that she is here, usually has one of those courtroom seats. So we will see. The Jackson family, and I think this to say, has been known at times to have some dysfunction and some falling out, but they certainly have rallied together in the last few weeks and months during this trial.
LaToya Jackson right now is going through the metal detector, and Mesereau is in your foreground kind of blocking her, but that was LaToya Jackson, and there is Mike Jackson's father about to go through as well.
And the mother, Catherine, as Wendy was mentioning, someone who's been you know, by Michael's side through much of this trial. Now she's getting ready to go through
and again,
security
Ellen,
there. She's being checked out.
Ellen, speaking of Mom, you know, we can't touch on her enough. I sat right behind her during one of the days of very painful testimony. And when I say painful, it was uncomfortable. It was testimony about pornography. There were pornographic images that were shown up on that very big and very bold screen. She feels very, you could tell she felt uncomfortable anytime those images of those pornographic magazines and materials that were found and seized in the search. She would look down. She took copious notes, and there were days where she was only the only family member present. I mean, they've all sort of taken turns. He's never been in court without a family member, but you know, you really see the love of a mother for her son. Catherine Jackson was there day in and day out. She had a small little notebook. I always watch, you know, we have these big notebooks and her taking notes. She has this very small, almost pocket little notebook that she wrote very small, and she really, you know, by all accounts, is just a very lovely woman who you could tell just is painting right now for her son. Michelle, we'll send it back to you. I believe it's Michelle and David, correct, back in the studio?
Yes, Michelle and David here, and we're here with Jody Armour as we continue to await the verdict to be read. It should be read as soon as they get all the people into the courtroom. Now we're seeing Michael Jackson getting ready to go through security. And this was originally going to be read at 1:30 this afternoon, but they got a late start leaving the Neverland Ranch. So they moved back the verdict scheduled to be read at 1:45, but as you can see, it's gone well beyond that. So as soon as everyone gets through security and everyone is in place in court, then the jurors will be brought in and the verdict will be read. We have legal analyst here with us, Jody Armour, professor of law from USC. And give us an idea of exactly how this is going to work now, Jody. Is the jury in the courtroom at this point, or are they going to wait to call them in?
They're probably at this point not actually sitting in the courtroom, but standing by to enter just outside in an ante room, just outside the courtroom, so that they can go in and have their seats when they're called.
Now, Michael Jackson was supposed to be there within an hour of the announcement that there has been a verdict. Clearly, that's not going to happen. We're going to be at least a half hour beyond that. And we've seen the judge throughout this trial be very strict about attendance and being there on time. What happens in this case? Is this forgivable, or does this actually affect Michael Jackson?
Yeah, I think this is venial. This is forgivable from the judge's standpoint. He's really been concerned to ride herd on this case because he's been concerned about it turning into a circus and maybe getting out of control. He has some precedent with earlier high-profile celebrity cases in which it has kind of spun a little out of control. But now we're at the end. You know, the worst fears have not been realized, and a little leeway now won't hurt any further proceedings.
Jody, one of the things that has been difficult, I would think, in this case for jurors to struggle with is the whole, and in any case, really, the whole concept of reasonable doubt. How can you not have some inkling of doubt in any case, really, that you're going to be deciding with a certain amount of evidence?
Yeah, there's always going to be some doubt, a little doubt, even, you know, when you, let's say, sit and have your morning coffee in Starbucks, you know, has the alarm really gone off, or are you still sleeping? There can be a little doubt, but reasonable doubt is you can still have some doubt, but you have to have a kind of moral conviction. It's the kind of doubt that you'd be willing to entertain if something was very important to you and you went ahead and did it anyway. Let's say, for example, you're driving from home and you're pretty sure you turned off that stove. In fact, you just know you turned off that stove. But, you know, your child's back at home with the babysitter. Do you turn around and go back and check on that stove, or are you sure enough that you keep driving? If you're sure enough that you keep driving, then you're sure beyond a reasonable doubt. If you have to turn around, you're not quite there.
You're looking at a live picture of the courtroom doors. One is shut, the other one is about to be shut, which gives us the indication that things are on the verge of getting underway. Now, keep in mind, you will not see what goes on inside that courtroom outside of a courtroom drawing rendition after the fact, but you will hear it. Much like the Scott Peterson case, you were brought inside via audio only. So we will listen in. Once things get underway, we are going to listen in on the proceedings inside the courtroom, so you'll have to bear with us as we try to figure out how that is all going to work. In the meantime, that brings us to this media secrecy thing and the way the judge has behaved and made his decisions throughout this case, and he is not allowing cameras inside this courtroom. Does that inhibit the American people from seeing the law as it should be, or does it not?
Yeah, well, there's a real concern. You can understand where Melville is coming from. He's concerned that the lawyers might start playing to the cameras and the proceedings might spin out of control. All those kinds of concerns, valid though they may be, there's also a value served by transparency. Having transparent legal proceedings enhances the public confidence in the judicial process and in the ultimate verdict. When you don't allow cameras in, when you don't even let the media and the rest of us know through the media what questions the jurors are asking and how they're being answered, there's an opaqueness, there's a shroud that comes around the proceedings that can undermine that public confidence and be fertile soil for conspiracy theories and suspicions and the like that you could dispel simply by promoting transparency and allowing the maximum amount of information to get out.
All right, Jody, thank you very much. We understand the doors have just been shut inside the courtroom. There's that live picture. So we anticipate that soon, any second now, the judge will probably enter the courtroom along with the jury, and the proceeding will begin. We are monitoring that audio feed and getting that set up for you right now. In the meantime, you're looking outside the courtroom as the many fans are gathering, awaiting to see what this verdict is going to be.
There are hundreds of people who have come out for the reading of this verdict today, people who have gathered outside the courtroom, many of them fans of Michael Jackson, some of whom have caused problems. Last week we saw one of those fans get slapped with a restraining order after bothering a court TV reporter continually outside the courthouse. So some of the fans have not been so nice to the media, especially in recent days as we've gotten closer to the verdict being read. Once the jury went into deliberations, the fans started to get a little more surly with the crowd of media that had been outside the courtroom. So it will be interesting to see how they react once the verdict is read. There are a lot of law enforcement officers on hand to handle any potential problems. We have Wendy Birchu's outside keeping an eye on the fans. And Wendy, it seems to be pretty quiet there right now. Is everyone kind of waiting and listening?
Yeah. There's a hush now. I mean, what happened were a number of members of the media who were in that bullpen hoping for one of those coveted courtroom seats have now dispersed to their various offices and their various live positions. So that gives us every indication that everyone who's going to be in that courtroom is now inside of that courtroom. Other media have filed into the listening room. Now, I want to touch on an important base that Jody Armour was bringing up. You guys were discussing the issues of secrecy. This became a big deal here over the weekend. Late Friday night, it was rumored around here that the jury had asked the judge some questions, and it wasn't confirmed to the court. So over the weekend, a number of motions were prepared and filed early Monday morning asking the judge to reveal what sort of proceedings were going on, what sort of communication was happening between the jurors and the court. And then about 2 hours ago, I'd say about an hour and a half before the verdict, we received this notice from the court. It said that there were actually 4 conferences that were held with the court and counsel regarding the people of the state of California versus Michael Jackson that took place on Friday. They even gave the times of those conferences, but they did not indicate what the exact questions were. But they say there was a request for readback of testimony from the court reporter's transcript, and that request was accommodated. Then there was another question that happened early Monday morning, early today, I should say, at 10:25. So this sort of thing just gives indication that they were making some progress. But I'll tell you, right around 12:30, when there started to begin the beginning rumblings that we could have a verdict, people started to look around and quickly assembled into their places. Now, that is when we are told, and when we've confirmed from ABC News, that the verdict came down, 12:30 this afternoon, which would have meant Michael Jackson needed to be here at 1:30. He arrived shortly after 1:45. I don't know if we have an exact time on that, but right around 1:45, 1:50. A concession there, admittedly. One of the pool corners walked by while Michael Jackson was on his way and said, yeah, we're giving him another 15 minutes. We talked about what a stickler this judge is. Judge Melville is a no-nonsense judge. He's a smart man, he's methodical, but he's very no-nonsense when it comes to the behaviors inside of that courtroom. And he made it very clear that Mr. Jackson, when he was late on the day that he showed up in pajamas, that he needed to be here on time. However, given the circumstances, given the magnitude of this, given that an hour is a pretty quick time to get everyone assembled and get here, I think that you won't see much made of the fact that he was just a few minutes late, and I believe 15 to 20 minutes. And they know that it does take for some time for everyone to get through inside that courtroom. On a normal day, the media would already be inside the courtroom when Mr. Jackson arrived. So a little concession there. I don't think that's going to be a big deal here. I think there's just so much more that we're dealing with right now that the fact that he was about 15 or 20 minutes late isn't going to be a thing that the judge harps on. So yes, secrecy again was an issue. Judge Melville was actually going to have a hearing that he posted for Friday to discuss what the communications were between the jury and the court, but I don't think that Friday hearing is going to have much merit now as we move into the verdict phase of this. So I'll send it back to you. We'll just keep going back and forth. You just keep throwing it at me. We're ready here. Things have hushed a little bit, but there is an anxiety in the air. Well, you can feel it.
We appreciate you being on standby out there for us, Wendy, and we want to let our viewers know that we are continuing to monitor the audio feed. We will not be allowed to see the actual proceedings inside the courtroom. Cameras are not allowed. But we do have an audio feed, and so as soon as the jury is seated, as soon as those proceedings get underway, you will hear it here as it happens live on ABC7. The testimony in this case ended a week from last Friday, 2 Fridays ago, with the playing of the police interview with the accuser. The legal analysts were surprised that the defense didn't call the boy back to the stand, and that's how the case ended. Did it surprise you as well, Jody?
Yeah, it was very surprising because you had a witness, the key witness in the case, able to give testimony without any cross-examination, without any effort to really kind of get at whether or not there were problems with what he was saying and to tease out what those problems were. I think that the defense at that point, though, was concerned that they may have been taxing the attention span, the energy, and the patience of the jury, and rather than risk kind of invoking, triggering some kind of bad will, they just cut it off there.
Speaking of the jury, perhaps the most important part of this trial, of any trial, is the makeup of that jury. So what are your thoughts? Not a single African-American on this case.
Right, and Michael Jackson's father, Joe Jackson, of course, has made quite a bit of that there aren't any African Americans, and is concerned that his son, who is African American, might be viewed by the jury through lenses that aren't completely unbiased and completely neutral. Some question whether anyone really views Michael Jackson through the lenses of race. Some have said that maybe he transcends race in some sense. He's a pop icon who bridges, who cuts across all those kinds of boundaries and lines of demarcation on the one hand. On the other, if they on any level do see him as an African-American defendant, there's a lot of social science research out there that suggests unconsciously that might have an impact. The fact of the matter is the demographics of this jury are very important. Where they're coming from, their life experience, etc., is going to determine how they filter the information that's coming into them, the evidence, how it's weighed by them as it's coming in. So it is important for us to attend to the social kind of identity of the jurors and think whether that could have some impact in the ultimate verdict.
Jody, we know that the jury foreman is said to be a 63-year-old Hispanic man, a retired school counselor. He has been a very heavy note taker, apparently, very intense, as he's described by some court watchers. Currently living in Santa Maria. How important is this gentleman to the deliberation process, the jury foreman?
He'll have a big impact, most likely, on how methodical and systematic. He's basically has to sit and try to act as kind of a regulator, you know, trying to keep everyone speaking in turn, not having people speak over one another, and marshaling, kind of marching through the issues as they arise, saying what are the threshold issues, which ones we have to deal with first, and then next. And since there are so many issues and so many layers of things that they have to consider, he's going to play a very important role in how efficiently and kind of to the point these deliberations were. Apparently he was pretty good because it's only been, what, about 5-6 days of deliberations in a over 3-month case with, you know, 100 pages of jury instructions. So this jury has waded through this information pretty efficiently, it seems.
Yeah, I think that the total is less than 30 hours total deliberation for this jury in such a long trial. Now, to give you some idea on this jury, Michelle mentioned the 63-year-old Hispanic male is the foreman. There's also a 66-year-old white male, a 50-year-old white female, 51-year-old white female, 42-year-old white female, 21-year-old single wheelchair-bound white male on the jury, a 22-year-old white single female, a 79-year-old white female, 39-year-old Asian female, a 45-year-old Hispanic female, and a 20-year-old Hispanic male. Juror number 12 is 44-year-old Hispanic female. So that's your jury makeup. Those are the people who have been sitting there deliberating for the last 7 days or so, trying to figure out whether or not Michael Jackson is guilty. By the way, what you're looking at is a live picture on the left, a taped picture on your right. LaToya Jackson, as she's going through the metal detector. We saw that just moments ago, the entire Jackson clan going through that metal detector. Everybody is in the courthouse right now awaiting the proceeding to get underway.
As soon as it gets underway, we will hear it here live on ABC7. There will be an audio feed direct into the courtroom. David gave us an idea of the makeup of the jury. Juror number 7, the 21-year-old man, dreams of becoming a motorsports journalist. He's in a wheelchair, and he also visited Jackson's Neverland Ranch when he was a 6th grader with a cerebral palsy group. Jody, are you surprised that someone who's actually visited Michael Jackson's ranch as a child would be seated on this jury?
Well, from the prosecution standpoint, of course, your concern that's implicit in your question is that he might have too much of an emotional connection to Neverland Ranch and the good feelings he had when he visited as a child to be perhaps as impartial and objective as he might otherwise be. During the rest of voir dire, though, the prosecution must have been satisfied that he could get over that and give it a more kind of impartial look. You also have juror number 5, who has a grandson registered as a sexual deviant. So here he has a family member who's gone through an experience not too dissimilar to this, and that might make him especially sensitive to some of the issues that are arising and may give more teeth to the beyond reasonable doubt standard.
Important report here we just received from ABC News, and that is apparently, according to the pool out there, the pool of reporters, the jury did not hang on any count. No hung jury in this case. This is the early report. Of course, we'll find out for sure when the verdict is read in moments from now, but that's very interesting that the jury did not hang on any count, if in fact that is correct. Now, Jody, with that said, does that give us any indication of what's going to happen here today?
What we do know is that it means complete vindication for one side or the other. Either the prosecution is going to walk away from this being completely validated in their judgment calls throughout the trial and decision to bring these charges, or the defense is going to be. And it's really hard to tell just on the basis of that which way the jury actually may be leaning. What we can say for sure, though, is that if it's guilty on all counts, we're looking at possibly over 18 years if the sentencing is consecutive, probably at a minimum, if it's consecutive, if it's concurrent, probably at a minimum maybe 8 years or so. So if there's guilt on all counts, which would be the case if there's no hung jury, then we could be looking at very, very serious time here.
And we're told that the likelihood of him being allowed to go back home for sentencing, if he is found guilty today, is very slim, that he would likely be taken into custody immediately. Is that what you're hearing as well?
Yeah, he would certainly seek to have his bail continue. The court may revoke bail and take him into custody immediately, or they may increase its amount. They have Jackson, if he wants to go on bail, he has to show by clear and convincing evidence that, number one, he's unlikely to flee, number two, he doesn't present any danger to the rest of the community, and that the appeal is not purely for the purpose of delay of any kind. We know in the Martha Stewart case, for example, she did get to go home on bail pending appeal and sentencing. It's not atypical for that to happen. This is a special case, though. The prosecution would certainly argue vigorously that he does present a flight risk and that bail should be revoked.
So would there be like a little hearing after the verdict is read then to determine whether or not he would be out on bail?
Absolutely. There would be a separate kind of mini hearing in which the court would continue whether they would determine whether it should grant Jackson's bail pending appeal or if he should be taken into custody immediately.
And that happens immediately today after the verdict is read?
Yes, because the decision has to be made now whether to handcuff him and take him into custody.
So Mesereau has to be prepared for any scenario, either seeing his client go free or, to deal with each individual charge and how he's going to try to convince this judge not to send him to jail today.
Absolutely. He has to be prepared for the best and worst case scenarios and have all his information lined up.
Okay, let's go back now to Wendy Birch, who's outside the courtroom with some new information. Wendy?
Let me clarify some of those points, too, or just reemphasize, I should say, some of the points that Jody was making. I spoke to a former sheriff here from the Santa Barbara County, a longtime sheriff. He's considered an expert on this case. He's followed it very closely. I asked him specifically if Michael Jackson is convicted on any of the counts, excluding the misdemeanor alcohol charge, because the jury has the option to bump those alcohol counts down to misdemeanors instead of felonies. I asked him what the likelihood would be for Michael Jackson to go home. He knows this judge. He knows him personally. He knows him professionally. He says that in his mind, it would be highly unlikely, improbable that Michael Jackson would be able to go home during the sentencing phase. He says if those felony counts come down, those felony decisions come down, he said, and again, this is according to a former sheriff here at the from Santa Barbara County, expect Michael Jackson to be taken in handcuffs out of that courtroom, taken to a holding cell here for a moment, and then transported to the Santa Barbara County Jail. Now, this is, they have all these plans in place, and I do believe we have sent back some video of the Santa Barbara County Jail. If I can just for a moment, I can give you some information about what that would be like. And again, Michael Jackson, we'll emphasize, has not been convicted of anything. But if, in fact, these jurors, and we are told that they are not hung on any of these counts, if they have found him guilty on any of these felony counts, here's what we can expect. Mr. Jackson had two choices here in Santa Barbara County. He could have been taken to a holding cell in Orcutt, which is about 5 miles away from here. That's basically a temporary place. Sometimes it's called the drunk tank, places where people go for about 4 or 5 days, not equipped to house a long-term prisoner. It is most likely, and sources tell us, that they have prepared an area in the Santa Barbara County Jail for Michael Jackson to go to if he is found guilty. It's about a 65-mile drive. He would be driven not in the vans and in the public transportation transportation that we see so many of convicted felons travel in back and forth to jail. He would more than likely be driven with deputies down to this jail in Santa Barbara County. Now, this jail houses 600 people, and it's overcrowded. Overcrowding is a huge issue. Of course, Michael Jackson would not be entered into general population of that jail. He would go into one of the isolation parts of that jail, and this is what his life would be like in that jail until he is sentenced. He would be in that jail 23 hours a day. He would get out only for an hour, and that would be for some exercise. He would eat all 3 meals in that jail. This is a far cry from Neverland. There is one bed. It is on a steel, or maybe it might either be steel or concrete platform with a very thin mattress. There is a steel urinal and a wash basin in that. There are not bars in front of these isolation cells. It's just basically a door with a window where you can actually look in and see the prisoner there. The lights go on at 5 a.m. I believe they're out at 5:30. He would have little, if no, contact with any of the other inmates. Again, this is a very, very crowded jail. Overcrowding is a huge issue here in Santa Barbara County. So Michael Jackson would be in one of their special isolation holding cells. And he's been there before. This is the same jail that he went, and he was where he went to become booked. We saw that jail photo many times. That is where he went. He did not like it. He actually made accusations that he was mishandled there, that sheriff's deputies treated him unfairly, that he hurt his shoulder. The district attorney of Santa Barbara County looked into that, and they said that there was nothing founded there, so those charges went away. But Mr. Jackson made his displeasure of that jail, even though he was only there a couple of hours and not in an isolation cell. He made his displeasure about that circumstance very, very clear. So again, that is what will most likely happen. I have to mention one other thing about this. You know, rumors have a way of growing legs and running wild throughout this area here. It was rumored last week that the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department had actually put plans into place to fly a helicopter in.
Wendy, I'm sorry,
and
we have
land
to
it at the
interrupt you.
baseball
We're hearing
field
audio
next
now
to
from the courthouse. Let's listen into the courthouse.
Santa Barbara, Santa Maria Division. The people of the state of California, plaintiff versus Michael Joe Jackson, defendant. Case number 1133603. Count 1, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of conspiracy as charged in count 1 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 2, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 2 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 3, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 3 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 4, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 4 of the indictment, dated June 10th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 5, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 5 of the indictment, dated June 10th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 6, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of attempting to commit a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 6 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 7, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony as charged in count 7 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 7, verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21, a lesser included offense of that charge in count 7 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 8, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony as charged in count 8 of the indictment, dated June 13, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 8 verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21, a lesser included offense that charged in count 8 of the indictment, dated June 13, 2005, for person number 80. Count 9 verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony as charged in count 9 of the indictment, dated June 10, 2005, for person number 80. Count 9 verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21, a lesser included offense of that charge in count 9 of the indictment, dated June 10, 2005, for person number 80. Count 10 verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony as charged in count 10 of the indictment, dated June 10, 2005, for person number 80. Count 10 verdict, lesser offense. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21, a lesser included offense of that charge in count 10 of the indictment, dated June 2005, for person number 80.
That completes the reading of the verdicts. I'm now going to go off the air.
Not sure if that is the end of the audio feed or not. We're going to continue to listen in. But what we can tell you at this point is that he has been found not guilty on all 10 counts. Jody Armour, what do you think about this?
Yeah, it looks from the defense standpoint like a total vindication. Not only not guilty on all 10 felony counts, as you just mentioned, but all 4 misdemeanors. There wasn't even any compromise that happened in the jury room where someone said, well, let's at least split the baby a little and just give us the misdemeanor counts. It was a clean sweep in favor of the defense in this particular case.
Now, you mentioned to me, and I'm not sure if I should say this on the air, but as soon as you heard the first not guilty on count 1 conspiracy, you said dominoes.
Yes.
What does that mean?
The domino effect. You had one charge fall right after another. If he had been convicted of conspiring to abduct, then the jury would have had to conclude that he had something to hide. He was worried about something. But when they said, no, he wasn't involved in a conspiracy, he wasn't trying to cover anything up, then maybe he didn't have anything to cover up. And then the next lewd act, the allegation that came in, fell, although it didn't logically have to, but just the momentum of it carried over. The fact of the matter is, I think what was devastating for the prosecution's case here was the internal inconsistency in the timeline. On the one hand, to say he panicked and tried to kidnap when the Bashir documentary came out because he was so worried, and on the other, that he committed the acts of molestation after he tried to kidnap. After he was worried about everything, he did the one act that could give substance to all his worries and all his fears. That was the inconsistency that the prosecution apparently never could get beyond with this jury.
Now, you were looking at live pictures from outside the courtroom. You saw throughout the verdict the reaction from the crowd very much in favor of the verdicts. Many people throwing confetti and celebrating. And we saw the woman who is there every day who releases these white doves on behalf of Michael Jackson. She was celebrating, releasing those doves yet again as each verdict was read as not guilty. A very strong reaction from the crowd outside the courthouse.
We have our Wendy Birch, who's been outside near the fans. And Wendy, what was it like when the verdicts came down? How would you describe the crowd?
Well, I will describe them as mixed. Those that are the diehard Michael Jackson fans, the ones that were in front and center positions, the ones that have traveled around the world, they were screaming. I hear that there were tears flowing, and as you saw, the confetti was thrown, the white doves were released. But then there are about 2 or 3, maybe even 400 people, and I assume that these are people, just plain folks in Santa Maria, that know that this court case has come and invaded their town. they just sort of sat there sort of speechless, sort of just taking it all in, just sort of seeing all the reactions to place here. So very, very mixed, but those that were waiting for this verdict and traveled around the world to hear it, they are ecstatic right now, and I'm sure this place is going to erupt when Michael Jackson and his family leave that courthouse and get into those SUV vans and go back to Neverland Ranch instead of the alternative, which we discussed, which was being taken in handcuffs to the Santa Barbara County Jail. Right. Let me give you some information via our pool coordinators what should happen right now. They say that following the verdicts, the court can be expected to poll the jury. There could be discussions taking place, and then the judge will dismiss the jury. At that point, we expect to hear ABC News' Leslie Miller come bolting out of that courtroom to give us a play-by-play. I'm stepping off the chair here. The SUVs are moving back into position, at least all 4 of them. They've turned around. They're now back into position to go away to Neverland. We are unclear what sort of spokesperson or what things will be said. We anticipate, of course, hearing from Mr. Mesereau. We do not know if Mr. Jackson will speak to us. We don't know if it will be a written statement or if he'll actually speak to the cameras or the crowd. There's a pool microphone there. The media has affectionately called it the Green Monster because it's by now a green ivy wall. And we sit there all the time. It's a lockdown feed. He could stop by that microphone and say something. A written statement could be issued. But I know one thing. These fans are going to be clamoring to see Michael Jackson. You know, they've gotten smarter over time, too. And I'm not to indicate that they're done by any means, but they've learned a couple lessons from the still photographers that are around here all the time. They've actually brought ladders because they noticed the still photographers did that so they could be elevated and get a better view. And it seems like every week those ladders just kept getting taller and taller. Some of those ladders are now at the very top of that chain link fence, which is about 10 feet tall. Again, the vans are backing up into position. We're in lockdown once again. We cannot leave where we are. I anticipate this. They might hold the reporters that are inside that courtroom. They might actually hold them in the courtroom until Mr. Jackson and his family leaves, or at least exits the courtroom. But I don't know about you guys, but I am dying to hear what it was like inside of that courtroom. Leslie Miller's report is going to be incredibly interesting to find out what the reaction was like by both the media, the fans, and the family, and Mr. Jackson himself inside. So there's some buzz around. I see the bodyguard Mr. Jackson walking from the SUVs up to the area. You know, this could be very quick. We read what could have taken place if there was a hung jury, if there were some guilty verdicts. It could have been very long and very lengthy. That proceeding in there could have gone as long as an hour and a half. I didn't have my watch on with me, but boy, it seemed to go by fast. I don't think we've been in there and actually in session for more than maybe 15 minutes. I'm losing a little sense of time here. I think you guys might have a better eye on the clock. So keep an eye on the SUVs. Their engines are running. They're not parked. Those engines are running. This could indicate a quick escape, but, you know, Michael Jackson's unpredictable. We never expected him to dance on the ceiling of the SUV during those early days when he came here for the arraignment. So he's unpredictable. He is flamboyant at times. He is an entertainer. He comes from a showbiz family. So it'll be interesting. We know that all of the siblings, Michael Jackson, he has 8 siblings. There are 9 Jackson children. We counted all of them here except Marlon. We haven't seen Marlon in many weeks. In fact, I think he only made 1 appearance, 1 or 2 to this courtroom, but we know at least he's got his family around him, his mother and his father, and 7 of his 8 brothers and sisters, including all 3 of his sisters, who reportedly have been staying at Neverland Ranch. And you know, Janet and LaToya kind of come and gone in and out of Michael's life, but Rebe, the eldest sister, the eldest sibling actually, lives in Las Vegas, has been somewhat detached from the family for some time, but she was there with her sisters, all 3 of the young ladies, as we understand, and Randy was staying at Neverland throughout these proceedings. So, well, it's still electrifying out here, and those fans out there are making their presence felt. I see flags waving, and the still photographers are just having a heyday. There's a lot of run around going on out here.
Absolutely. We have a live picture of that courtroom right now. The doors are still shut, so we're going to be watching that. That's the picture you see on your right. That is live. So as soon as we see movement, you will see movement. Leslie Miller is in that courtroom, as you said. She will count as soon as she can to give us a reaction. We were told earlier by Leslie that Michael Jackson will talk if he, in fact, is found not guilty. Now, what is going on the left-hand side, we're not quite sure of, but they're bringing in a gurney. Some sort of emergency is going on right now, and we'll try to get some information on whether that affects something outside the courtroom or inside the courtroom. So we'll monitor that situation. In the meantime, Jody, you are with us right now as we continue to watch these live pictures. Michelle, you're saying something
well,
here?
It seems to me that it perhaps is for someone who's outside.
Yeah.
Looks like they're trying to lower it now to the ground, and it might be perhaps a fan or maybe even a member of the media, not sure. But that person is now being assisted by paramedics, and so it's not for someone inside the courtroom. Okay, the door is now opening, and we are seeing people now leaving the courtroom. There's the judge, Rodney Melville, one of the second or third people out the door there. And will the jurors come out this door as well, Jody?
It's hard to say logistically how they've worked it out in this courtroom. They've tried to anticipate things so to minimize the likelihood of too much congestion, a bottleneck, too much excitement, and having to wheel in other gurneys because of that. So it's hard to really say at this time.
My mistake there. That was D.A. Tom Stedden, not the judge. My mistake.
You can clearly see the dejection on his face. He was defeated once again by Michael Jackson. His history with Jackson goes way back to 1993 when he initially wanted to bring charges against Jackson, but apparently something went on, and that alleged victim did not come forward for a number of reasons, which most people out there listening to this probably have heard of. There's Leslie Miller. She's leaving the courtroom right now. She's going to make her way towards her live spot where she can talk about the reaction that Michael Jackson and his whole family had inside the courtroom, as well as Tom Stedden's reaction. He has been as high profile in this case as anybody else. And speaking of high profile, this is a case that we have seen so many different witnesses, 85 prosecution witnesses, 65-day-long prosecution case. And we saw there's Michael Jackson and his family as he's leaving the courtroom with almost a shocked look on his face, Michelle.
Can you imagine the sense of relief that he is feeling right now after sitting on pins and needles for 7 very long days for Michael Jackson as that jury deliberated? He had been hospitalized a couple of times at night, had gone to the hospital for back problems. He's had a lot of health problems throughout this trial. You know, most notably the day he arrived in pajamas. So he's got to be feeling a heck of a lot better now, knowing that he is a free man. He is now leaving the courtroom and going outside. We will wait to see if he's going to approach a podium of some sort. I don't know if there's an area set up where they're going to be giving press conferences or if the media is just going to try to talk to him while he walks. But there he is now leaving the courtroom, waving to the fans.
And you can hear the screaming going on right now. Quite clearly, he's going to get back into his motorcade. Apparently, no statement yet from Jackson, at least not from the courthouse. Perhaps that will come later on. Perhaps Tom Mesereau will speak on his behalf in the meantime. But Jackson, not even smiling, but almost a shocked look on his face as he leaves the courtroom, absolutely, without a doubt, relieved with the way this thing has happened, and it couldn't have gone better for him.
So they're now getting back into those vehicles. They arrived in just before 2 o'clock this afternoon. They arrived about 10 minutes until 2. And the jury was seated about 2:05. The verdict came down about 2:15, and now it's 2:30, and they're on their way out. So this all happened quite quickly, didn't it, Jody?
Yeah, this had to be for Michael Jackson like a near-death experience. If reports are true, if he dropped 20, even 30 pounds, he went in at 5'10", 120 pounds. He's at 5'10", 100 or 90 pounds. A 18-year conviction for Michael Jackson would have been nearly functionally equivalent to a capital sentence if he was losing that much weight and the health effects were that grave. I think it's hard for us to appreciate sometimes here in L.A. how much international attention has been focused on this case. I've been contacted by media outlets in Germany and Australia and Japan. The world's really attention has been focused on this case, and to an extraordinary degree. You've had German stations, for example, coming out to do pieces in Las Vegas about Michael Jackson impersonators and how the business for Michael Jackson impersonators fell off after these charges came out. They've been into it in that much detail, folks in Germany and in various other countries far abroad.
So we see Tom Stedden going back into the courtroom right now. Does he have more business to take care of today, or is his day done?
Yeah, he has a few loose ends to tie up. Most of his work is done for the day. There's some papers to sign, some housekeeping work to do at this point, but it couldn't be more complete vindication at this point.
And what a trial it has been. We saw Jay Leno, Chris Tucker, Macaulay Culkin, George Lopez all testify in this very high-profile case. So many celebrities, so many witnesses on both sides, and yet again we see not to beat the fact, but another high-profile celebrity You and I were sitting here on this desk a few weeks ago, and we watched Robert Blake go not guilty as well. And is there something to this that these celebrities get off on these cases?
Well, and in this case, you know, we saw the prosecution given every possible benefit of the doubt, every possible benefit in the litigation decisions made by the judge. He was given the 1108 past conduct kinds of allegations got to all come in. The videotape at the end, which he didn't have to show. The judge made very favorable decisions for the prosecution, and yet they still weren't able to convince this jury beyond reasonable doubt of this, of Mr. Jackson's guilt. With celebrities, certainly the fact that they have a lot of fame weighs in their favor. It makes the jury more likely to give them the benefit of the doubt, the presumption of innocence, because the studies show that when many jurors see a defendant at a defense table, their immediate response is, he must have done something wrong, she must have done something wrong, or why would they have been arrested? You know, they're not supposed to do that, but it's human nature to go that way. You tend to do that less with a celebrity, to actually give them more of that presumption of innocence and benefit of the doubt. But then probably the biggest factor is celebrities, unlike a lot of ordinary folk, have very deep pockets. They have almost limitless resources, as Michael Jackson had in this case, for defense. They can actually match the state dollar for dollar in defense monies, and that can make a big difference in the outcome of the case. A lot of ordinary defendants have to depend on, for example, a public defender. Public defenders are outstanding lawyers. Many of them are terrific at what they do, but they're overtaxed, they're overextended, they have a lot of clients, and they really have a lot of work to do. Here, a celebrity with a deep enough pocket can get one attorney who's at the top of his game to focus all his attention on just giving him the best defense possible.
Or in this case, we saw him start with Mark Garagos, one very high-profile attorney, and go to Thomas Mesereau, another high-profile attorney.
Okay, right now we're going to Leslie Miller. She was inside the courtroom when the verdicts came down, and she joins us now live. Leslie, describe for us what that was like inside the courtroom.
Michelle, I'm having a hard time hearing you, but I think you asked me to describe what happened inside the courtroom. I'll tell you, reporters sitting on the edge of their seats on pins and needles awaiting this verdict, as everyone else in the world. But the jurors walked in, and I watched every single one of them walk into the courtroom. Not one looked at Michael Jackson. They walked in, they sat down. You could tell that it's been a very emotional time. Usually this has been a very happy, chatty jury. They walked in, sat down, they took their seats, not looking at Michael Jackson. Again, an across-the-board acquittal. I sat there, and as the verdict was read, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, just circling all of these counts here. I will say that Michael Jackson came into the courtroom looking very grim. Just looking straight ahead as he walked. He took his seat. As the verdicts were read, he showed no emotion. He sat there, still, not moving. Very much like what he's done throughout this trial. He had tissue. I could see him blotting his face, but no movement. When it was all over, he stood up. Tom Mesereau was there. They embraced each other. All of the defense attorneys shaking each other's hands. Obviously, this is a great day for Michael Jackson's defense team, particularly Tom Mesereau. Michael Jackson appeared to be a little more emotional towards the end, walking out of the courtroom, had some tears in his eyes. But again, I don't know if it's set in that he's a free man. When he leaves, he's left court already. He is a free man. The judge thanking the jury, telling the jury that he appreciates all of their efforts. I will tell you that after the verdicts were read, the jury was incredibly emotional. A couple of jurors breaking into tears because it's a huge relief for them. I mean, for months. It's gone on to 4 months, which is shorter than we thought it would be. We thought this trial would take about 5 months, but it's been 4 months now. Every single day, these jurors, they've given up their lives to come into this courtroom and sit there from 8:30 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon, hearing testimony after testimony. 140 witnesses in total, up to 700 pieces of evidence. And they've spent 7 days, over 32 hours, deliberating to reach this across-the-board acquittal for Michael Jackson. Michelle?
And Leslie, have you heard any word about whether or not Michael Jackson will be issuing any kind of a statement or talking to the media at some point today? We know he's now back in his car, and he probably is headed back to Neverland.
Right.
Is anything like that planned for later?
You know, Michelle, I was told before the verdict was read that Michael Jackson was preparing a statement of some sort that we thought he may deliver himself. But of course, Michael Jackson, being an international celebrity, I would think that it's a little bit risky for him to hang around the courtroom or hold a press conference of any sort. So I'm sure his attorneys will be speaking on his behalf and reading some sort of prepared statement in Michael Jackson's words. And that'll be happening probably in the next little while. We do know that the prosecution team and the defense team plan to hold news conferences, and the jurors will probably speak to the media as well. One thing that the judge did when he was thanking the jury was encourage them to speak to the media, to talk about the case. For all this time, for weeks now, 14 weeks, 4 months, they have been told that they cannot discuss this case with the people they live with anyone in the outside world. They can't discuss the case with each other until, of course, deliberations started. So now the jurors are free too, and I'm sure that it's a huge burden off of their shoulders as well. And as I said, a couple of the jurors very emotional, breaking down in tears in the courtroom. It's just a huge relief, I would think. And so we will likely be hearing from some of the jurors as well.
Now, what about the prosecution? One of the first people we saw walk out of that courtroom when the doors opened was Sneddon, quite clearly very upset. Did he have much of a reaction at all?
You know, David, I tried to gauge Tom Sneddon's reaction, and it was kind of difficult. Where I was sitting in the courtroom, I could see that he really didn't show a lot of emotion. I mean, obviously, this was a big possibility. You know, you win some, you lose some, I suppose. In this case, this is one he really wanted to win, and some would argue that he's made a career trying to find Michael Jackson guilty of crimes of this nature. It didn't happen today. You know, going back to 1993, and the history is out there, that Tom Sneddon wanted to prosecute Michael Jackson back in 1993. That didn't happen. Michael Jackson reportedly settled out of court with an alleged accuser at that time for some $20 million. So, you know, there are those out there that would argue that Tom Sneddon, the district attorney for Santa Barbara County Sheriffs, has made a career out of trying to get Michael Jackson, so to speak. Didn't happen today.
Leslie, where was the family seated inside of the courtroom? Were they near Michael Jackson, and what was their reaction when the verdicts came down?
I'll tell you, Michelle, when Katherine Jackson walked into the courtroom, she was wearing a white jacket, and I'm assuming, and I think it's safe to assume, that she was wearing white to support her son's innocence. She thinks her son is innocent, and she's going to wear white and tell the world that he is innocent. She walked into the courtroom, followed by Joe Jackson, and Joe Jackson, always a character. You know, he walked into the courtroom, taking his time, sort of looking at this aisle and looking at that aisle, and at one point stopped to shake the hand of one of the reporters. Wasn't me, another reporter with another network, but shook his hand, then proceeded to take his seat. But he looked around. He looked around at the reporters. He looked around at the public, the fans that were in there, and just guests of the courtroom that were seated in the court. And he looked at the jury. He looked around, but he made sure that before he took his seat, he made his way down the aisleway, looking at both sides, just sort of scoping out the place, trying to just get a feel for it, I guess, but appearing confident. He didn't appear overly emotional. I think the family had a lot of confidence in Tom Mesereau and the defense team. I'll tell you which siblings were there. Randy was in the courtroom. Rebe, the oldest sister, was in the courtroom. LaToya Jackson was in the courtroom, and Tito was in the courtroom. There are only a certain amount of seats allotted for the Jackson family members, but outside of court, Janet Jackson was there and Jermaine Jackson was there, so a lot of family support for Michael Jackson.
Some high-profile people even in the Jackson family. We are watching a live picture right now as Jackson's motorcade works his way through or back to Neverland Ranch. Back to Leslie Miller, though. She just came out of that courtroom. She witnessed the whole thing, and as we listened in, she got to see some of the reaction of people inside of there. And Leslie, just as a matter of opinion, I would imagine when it comes to talking to the jurors, which I'm sure we will do in a matter of moments, but this probably is an opportunity to get some things off their chest and relieve themselves of the tremendous pressure that they have had throughout the weeks and months.
I would think so, David. As I said, it's an emotional day for the jurors, too. And you have to think, the world's not just watching Michael Jackson. The world is watching these jurors, the 8-women, 4-man jury panel from Santa Barbara County who, before this trial, had normal lives and did normal things and certainly weren't sitting in a courtroom 5 days a week from 8:30 to 2:30 in the afternoon. Everybody is watching them. It's got to be, I can't even imagine being on that jury panel. It's got to be a tremendous amount of pressure, and now that pressure's relieved, but now they're going to have to face, you know, reporters' questions and people saying, well, wait a second, why did you find Michael Jackson not guilty of all of these charges? You know, what did you think about this testimony? What about this testimony? I mean, you know, there are definitely going to be people who agree with them and people who don't agree with them. A lot of people out there thought Michael Jackson was guilty.
And there were some friendships that were made throughout the course of this 3-month-long trial among the jurors that I've read about. Some of them even carpooled together on the way to court in the mornings. It'll be interesting to hear what they have to say, and we are anticipating that will happen shortly. In the meantime, we have Eyewitness News reporter Leo Stallworth, who is in South Los Angeles as our team coverage now continues. Leo, can you tell us what kind of reaction you're getting from the people you're speaking to in South L.A.?
Well, first of all, I'm at Tolliver's Barbershop in South L.A., and the folks here are watching our coverage of the verdicts. A lot of different reaction here. Sir, what is your opinion? You saw the verdicts. Right. Michael Jackson not guilty on all counts.
Well, clearly he was found not guilty. Whether or not he's guilty is a whole nother conversation. What's really interesting is that everybody's celebrating. I bet you with none of these people that are celebrating allow him to babysit.
Okay. And you, sir?
Well, I think he was found innocent because of the credibility of the family. They had a lot of baggage, and people just didn't trust him. But I have some advice for Michael Jackson. Next time one of them little kids extends his hand, little boys, you better do the moonwalk away from him like that there. Because he better learn by his mistakes. He's going to have to change his way of living.
By the way, this is Lawrence Oliver. He is the owner of the barbershop. Let's walk over here to this gentleman here. Sir, your reaction, are you surprised?
Well, a little bit, just a little bit surprised. To me, I think we just put too much credence on this anyway. Tax dollars could be spent in a better way. Now, I guess, what's next? Who's the next person that we're going to put so much attention on? And I just don't understand why we just need to relish on all this and go this far. It's evident that the man has some type of problem. Whether or not he will seek some help or whether or not he will just continue to stay on the path that he's on is the other question. But really, I'm not really overly concerned about Mike because I believe he's still rich, and I got to go to work tomorrow. So, yeah.
What's your name, sir?
Eric Smith. Eric Smith.
All right. Just some of the reactions here at this barbershop in South L.A. I'm Leo Stallworth live in South L.A. Back to you in the studio.
Yeah, Leo, I think we need to get these guys a show on ABC or something. They're pretty good, pretty good. Thank you very much. In the meantime, let's check, as you continue to look at these live pictures, and we try to figure out whether or not jury members are going to talk, and Michael Jackson's going to talk, and Thomas Mesereau's going to talk. We're going to talk to Jody Armour, our legal analyst right now, about a couple of the details and more specifics when it comes to this trial. And let's talk about credibility of witnesses. We talked about this in the Blake case. We thought credibility was a key issue in some of the witnesses, or maybe lack of credibility. Did we see the same thing here?
Yeah, credibility was everything in this case. And you had one of the biggest problems for the prosecution was the accuser, particularly the accuser's mother, had a history of lying for profit and admitted to as much. In the welfare case, for example, admitted to taking welfare, state dollars, and not reporting all the circumstances that should have borne on that decision. So what you had in this case, as in many cases, was dueling narrative, dueling stories, dueling narratives of predators. The prosecution was claiming that Michael Jackson was a predator, that he had an MO, a modus operandi of going after young boys and giving them lots of presents and the like, and luring them into, lulling their defenses and luring them into his bedroom. On the other hand, the defense had a competing narrative of a predator, mother being a predator, and going after rich and famous people and trying to shake them down, or any deep pocket she could find and trying to shake them down. So you had this dueling narrative kind of combat going on in the courtroom, and apparently the jury at the end of the day bought the mother as predator narrative over the prosecution's Michael Jackson as predator claim.
Now, the prosecution seemed to think that this leaving on this video was a great way to end the case. The jury, for the last time, got to see the accuser being interviewed by the police, telling the police what apparently happened. But when the jury was instructed on how to interpret that video, weren't they given some strange instructions? In other words, you can't look at this video and tell us whether or not you think the boy is telling the truth. You can only look at the video and tell us whether you think the mother had coached the son, right?
Yes, we give jurors instructions like this that are unrealistic, really, from the standpoint of ordinary mental processing by ordinary people, right? We ask them to engage in the kind of mental gymnastics that few of us could. Don't consider this for the truth of anything this witness is saying, just for whether it looks like he's been coached in any way, and, you know, kind of separate. It's like saying what we want you to do is think in terms of the sound of the bell, but not the pitch or the tone of the bell. Somehow separate the two out. And it's unrealistic, and there were a lot of instructions like that in this case, and maybe we do make unrealistic demands of jurors at the end of the day when we give them those kinds of instructions. It's the best we've been able to do with our current jury system and the kinds of instructions we can give them. What we want, on the one hand, is certain information to get to the jury that we think will help them make an accurate, factual determination. On the other hand, we recognize that much of this information may play to their emotions, may play to their prejudices and biases, and we want to separate the two out somehow. But in trying not to throw out the baby with the bathwater, often we wind up with something that doesn't make a lot of sense to the ordinary juror sitting back trying to make a decision.
Now we're watching this motorcade work its way towards Neverland Ranch, and Michael Jackson's motorcade is gathering quite a following. We're seeing cars drive alongside with their fists in the air, congratulating Michael Jackson. Those are all live pictures as you watch them going on. I think that's the 101. Is that probably so?
Or perhaps they got, I don't know, I didn't see if they've gotten off yet. There's a highway that you take, 154, that takes you into Los Olivos, and then there's a little country road that they would turn down to go down to the Neverland Ranch. The ranch is a couple miles from Highway 154. I would imagine that they're going to have people following them all the way up until they get to the ranch, but then there is heavy security and a guard gate there, so they won't be followed once they actually get onto their property.
Back to Jody with Jody Armour with USC School of Law.